Hi, and welcome to Meet the Candidates 2014, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Our goal in providing these candidate interviews and profiles is to arm the voters with the information necessary to make informed and educated decisions in this year's election. Please visit shakopee.org to find out all of the information you need to know about upcoming candidate debates, as well as polling locations and times. Hi, and welcome to Meet the Candidates 2014, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. My name is Angie Whitcomb, and today I'm joined by Jim Terwedo, who is running for the position of Scott County Attorney. Thank you, Jim, for being here today.
It's a pleasure, Angie.
I appreciate it. Why don't you start by giving our viewers a brief introduction of yourself and your background and some of your history with this position?
Thank you. I'm a lifelong resident of Scott County. I was born and raised in New Prague. I have a business as a lawyer in Jordan. It's where my office is. I was the county attorney before. I think a lot of people know that. I was back in 1986 to 1994. Mm-hmm. I served 2 terms. There was a big controversy back then. I was elected and I said I can take care of this in 2 terms and I'm going to go back to private practice. Kind of don't like the idea of being a lifetime government official. Mm-hmm. So I went back to private practice. We cleaned everything up and things was running great. So in the last 20 years, I've been a businessman. Mm-hmm. I have my law practice. I have been doing some real estate development. I build office buildings also. Mm-hmm. So I have a wide range of 30 years of legal background and business background in our community. I'm also not only just doing business, I'm also greatly involved in my community. I'm a member of the Rotary Club in New Prague, Chamber of Commerce in Jordan, the Jordan Commercial Club, American Red Cross, the Scott County Fair Board, the Knights of Columbus, president of the Knights Foundation. Also worked very closely with my church, St. Wenceslaus in New Prague. So I'm a true believer in community involvement, mm-hmm. because if you're in business, you also have to be part of the community, mm-hmm. and I think those work very close together. We were talking earlier that the mayor of Shakopee just received from the Shakopee, not the Shakopee JCs, but the state JCs, the 10 Outstanding Young Minnesotan Award, mm-hmm. and they gave that to him. And I was talking to the mayor, and I thought it was really great because I said, back in 1989, Mayor, I received that award representing Shakopee. So I worked with the Shakopee JCs back then and still to this day also.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So let me ask you, Jim, in your view, what is the most pressing issue facing Scott County in the next few years? And if elected, how are you going to work to address that?
We need a new sense of leadership in Scott County. What I mean by that, you can hire a lot of great attorneys, but you elect a leader. You elect somebody that represents the people of Scott County. As a lifelong resident, I know what the people want in Scott County, what they see as a future in Scott County. I also think that because of that, there's some efficiencies that can be done in Scott County. We have 2 sets of prosecution. We have the county prosecution and all the city prosecution called joint prosecution. We have 2 sets, all in the same office, we have 2 sets of employees, 2 sets of benefit programs, 2 salary programs, 2 employment status programs, paid for by different ways of being paid. And because of that, there's some conflict in the office. There's conflict of how crimes are being prosecuted in Scott County. And there's not really a great consistency going on. There was a study done. Mm-hmm. And out of that study, option number 3 was, let's kind of bring these people together, make them Scott County employees. And I agree with that. I think that we can do a joint powers agreement between the cities and the county, make these people Scott County employees, not just out on their own, and we'll bring some efficiencies to the office, be consistent prosecution throughout the county, and I don't think we have to worry about cities worrying if they have enough tax dollars out there to fund a program that they don't know what the consequences of how much they need to put in every year. So that's one of the main things that has to be done right away.
Okay. Let's talk about the business community. Can you give me an example of 3 things you would propose or support that would enhance the health of the business community in Scott County?
Being a businessman myself, I've done a lot of business in Scott County. I know number 1, as affects businesses, is insurance fraud. I can tell you that's a big cost to businesses when there are high rates of insurance. Thus, because there are people out there that are constantly scamming the system. And that really upsets me. And so the idea is that if they are scamming the system, they should be prosecuted for fraud. And I think if you do an earnest effort to send that message out there, people are going to start saying, you know, we're not going to do this in Scott County. They come after you. And I think that's going to, number one, help our business community. It's number one. Great. Number two, the second thing that I think is very important is that businesses work so hard to get a brand name, to say, you know, this is who I am. I'm Bill's Toggery. I'm Valley Fair. I'm you know, whatever the business you have, because you have years of experience working on that. And all of a sudden, you get somebody, what I call a fly-by-night guy, that comes into our community and maybe not even sets up shop, but wants to sell stuff and scams our citizens, scams our seniors, vulnerable people that are out there, and all of a sudden, they have a bad opinion about all business. They're all the same. I can tell you, when I was county attorney before, when somebody did that, let's say it was a little old lady that some guy said he was going to build a deck and never did it but took her money. We went after that person. We found that person. We brought him back to Scott County. We prosecuted him in jail. That sends a message out there. If you're going to do business in Scott County, if you're going to do business in Shakopee, you better make sure you're up to snuff in what you're doing and what you're promising, and you have good contracts and good bonding and good licensing, and you have a reputation. I want to make sure that our citizens are protected, and then in the same sense, our businesses are protected. The third thing that I think is very important is some of the issues dealing with identity theft and also dealing with defrauding businesses. 25 years ago, I started the bad check program. You hear about that, you see the little placards, the county attorney is going to prosecute. That's the same card I produced 25 years ago, and it's still working, and I think it had to push that. There's no difference between somebody coming up to a counter and saying with a gun, saying give me $200, or just writing out a bad check to you and taking the heck out of here. So we've prosecuted and we sent that message here. You will be prosecuted for doing a bad check. The same thing with identity fraud, maybe some other scams that may be coming out there. We got to make sure that we are working with local businesses and trying to hear what's going on in local businesses so that the criminal justice system can adapt very quickly and also send a message out that we are a good business community.
Great. Jim, this next question is kind of an interesting one. I'd like to know, in your opinion, whose interests should matter in the decisions that are made by the county attorney's office?
Angie, I can tell you that back when I was in college and even in law school, I did some internships at the legislature. And there was this one legislator from the northern suburbs who was talking about a concept of victims' rights. And I was interested in it, so I kind of helped him a little bit with it. And then through law school, and even when I became county attorney, the whole theme, it was all bubbling up, the whole concept of victims' rights. And I was the first one in Scott County to establish the Victim Witness Program of Scott County. And we had some special funding. I was non-taxpayer funding that I received initially to get it started, and we got this program going. Victims' rights are very important. And the whole definition of victim is important too, because it's not just the person that was mugged or robbed in the house and that their rights are there. It's also businesses too. You know, a business can be a victim. I don't care if it's criminal damage to property. I don't care if it's a bad check. I don't care if it's maybe it's shoplifting. You know, every time you protect the victim and send the message out. I'm a big person on messages, sending messages out. If you send that message out that you're going to be tough on these areas and you're going to make sure that people are protected, it sends a message out to the whole community and people who are going to do this stuff. Just like when I did the truancy ordinance back 25 years ago, it's helped schools out. So I think a victim has to be, you have to look to see what have they lost. It's not just restitution, but it's also making it public enough that they're going to understand you better not do that. If we start having a bunch of shoplifting going on, that's hurting business and raise prices and such. But if it's known out there through the community that they don't care if it's a $5 piece of whatever, you know, merchandise, you're going to get hauled into court for this. Now, I'm not going to waste taxpayers' dollars in saying that, you know, 2 cents candy is going to go, then you have to look at this. But I think you have to send a clear message. And that clear message is going to be that we're going to protect victims of crimes in Scott County, like I always have been when I first started the program.
Great. In the last few years, we've had a lot of businesses and a lot of new families moving to Scott County. Usually I'm asking business professionals or non-attorney types this question, but how would you describe Scott County, or what would you say to these people to encourage them to do so and to continue to do so.
You know, I've been here for, like I said, a long time. I was part of the team that brought the Bloomington Ferry Bridge across and the 169 bypass across. And we knew that because of that, there's going to be this great influx of people, because Scott County is the great secret, the great secret back in the old days of this is a phenomenal place to live. A lot of heritage, a lot of culture, and we wanted to preserve that also. So when I was county attorney before, I worked very close with every big business, whether it was Canterbury, whether it was Mystic Lake, Valley Fair, and the big businesses, and also small business coming in here to say is that we also, you can project that Scott County is going to be a safe place. And not only a safe place to drive through, to come and visit, to buy a house in, to raise your kids in. We want that atmosphere here in Scott County. And I think you have to project that by saying that we will keep your parks safe. We will make sure that your kids have a great school to belong to, and they don't have to worry about drugs and gangs and maybe something that inner cities have that we don't have. And so we have to work harder at this. We have to work very hard to make sure we project this image that we are going to do our best for families to make this as a great place to grow up. I was even talking to somebody just the other day who was saying, well, my kid, they get off on the bus about 2 blocks from this point and they have to come here, and they have some sidewalks, but sometimes the cars don't always stop, in this walkway. And I said, we have a very good Shakopee Police Department. I bet you if you give them a call, and if those same people are still kind of using the street and not really stopping, they'll put an undercover person there just for a day or two. All you have to do, it gets out that there's a cop watching, or somebody's caught once or twice, and it kind of takes care of the issue real quick. And I know our police department works very close with citizens and community watch groups, and I think we have to promote that. We have to promote this interaction, this communication. And the county attorney, as the chief law enforcement officer in the county, should be the person that makes sure that these things happen. And I want to make sure that that happens so everybody says, Scott County, oh, I know where it is. I just don't go there for the Renaissance Festival. I go there because and I'm going to live there, I'm going to work there, I like being in there, and I want that image to happen.
Great. We'd like those people to keep coming. Last question, Jim, to be an easy one for you to answer. Why are you the best candidate for this job?
I think, like I've told a lot of people before, there's a lot of good attorneys in the state of Minnesota. You can always hire a good attorney, but an elected official has to be elected. You are electing a leader, somebody that knows the community. I'm a lifelong resident here. I just didn't move in July 1st like my opponent, and he lived in Eden Prairie all this time and has only just as of July 1st moved here. I belong to organizations in this county, and my opponent doesn't belong to any of these organizations. So thus, I know the people, I know what their interests, their priorities are, their concerns, because I see them on a daily basis. And so I think I understand where they want to go with the growth of our county and what their expectations are. I have a wide range of legal background. It's just not doing criminal cases, which is a part of it, but it's also knowing land use, knowing zoning and planning. It's also knowing about custody matters and child support, because the county's involved with that, the neglect of children. I just had a major trial within this last year on the custody and neglect of a child, and we won it for my client. So I'm able to operate in a courtroom if need be. But I think you have to bring a leadership style that everybody can work together as a team, because I know that's breaking down here in Scott County. Maybe that's why the president of the county attorney ended up suing the county board, which is suing the taxpayers for a pay increase. I think if you have a good working relationship with your county board and other officials throughout this county, you don't have to sue anybody, and I will not sue anybody. I will not sue the taxpayers, because I'm a property taxpayer in this county. I understand where your property taxpayers money goes, and I think I know how to spend it most efficiently to make sure that we're not overtaxed.
Great. Well, I thank you for your time today and for coming in and sharing your opinions with us. And I'd like to thank all of you at home for watching this edition of Meet the Candidates 2014. Please visit the Chamber website at shakopee.org for all of the information on the upcoming candidate debates, as well as polling locations and times.